So this session is going to be about two different topics. One, the effects of the gadgets on the general health, and another on the eye. What happens to your eye? So this session is basically about kids. What happens to your kids when you're being exposing to gadgets for a longer time. But a lot of things applies to us as adults as well. So let's move on. I'll show you a, one second. Why it's moving? Yes. I'll show you a picture here. Can somebody unmute and tell me what do you infer from this picture? What do you observe from this picture? Any responses? Anybody wants to talk about this?
Yeah, everybody's watching at the gadgets. There's no much of interactions between them.
Very good. Yes, very important point. Anything else apart from that? Anything else you want to add? Yes, there's no interaction here. Each kid is having a different gadget. So this is the ideal, most common ideal play date nowadays. When there are few kids getting it together to play, each kid has a different gadget. Each kid watches the gadget and they're engrossed in the gadget here as shown in the picture. And there's absolute no interaction here between the kids or around the surrounding. They're isolated from the surrounding basically. They're addicted to their phones. In my opinion, if 4 kids are together, at least if they watch a bigger television or bigger screen, there could be some interaction at least between the kids, rather than watching a different gadget. So what happens when they've been watching the Is there anybody wants to say something? Okay. So what happens when they've been exposing to gadgets for a longer time? Let me share, before I move on to this effects, let me share some fun facts here. 1 in 4 children use mobile phones before they are 18 months or before they can talk. There was a survey by TCS, a software firm in 2013. It said 29% of children use a gadget as toddlers, that is below 2 years. And 70% of them master it by the age of 5 years or before they go to a primary school. And a favorite toy for any kid less than 5 years is mobile phone or tablets. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention, or commonly called as CDC, it said children between 4 to 17 years have ADHD. Mostly around 4 to 7% of kids have ADHD. And in the last 2 decades, this has doubled almost to 11%, and it is most commonly due to gadgets. In 2014, the Association of Teachers in Britain said toddlers lack these motor skills to build the building blocks, but they can easily swipe a screen. So is there any correlation between the two? Why do they mention a building block and swiping a screen? Can anybody say there's any correlation between the two? Why do they report something like this? Swiping a screen and building block? Is there any correlation between the two?
Eye-hand coordination.
Eye-hand coordination, yes. Anything else? Yes, that is also there. Yes, very good. Anything else?
We may need different grips. Different grasps are required for building blocks, but not required for a tablet. Yes.
Okay. Yes.
Palmar grasp, pincer grasp, lot of cylindrical grasp may require building blocks.
Yes. Yeah.
But it is not required for
Yes, correct. Yes. So basically, building blocks, like both building blocks or a swiping a screen, requires your motor skills, using your hands, using a motor skill, something called a motor skill. But there are 2 different motor skills called the fine motor or the gross motor skills. So here, building blocks requires fine motor skills. That is, it requires to be properly built one upon another, a stacking of one upon another. But swiping a screen requires gross motor skills. So what they infer from this is kids lack fine motor skills, but they do have gross motor skills. Using gadgets improves their gross motor skills, but not their fine motor skills. That's what they meant in this research. All right. So are they really a fun fact, or is going to be a fear fact is what we're going to discuss about. So the frequency of play type, the most common play type, they did a research for kids under than 12 years of children, 12 and under children. It was done by a very famous research group by Michael Cohen group. So it said almost more than 60% of kids play with touch screens. Could be a tablet, could be a phone, it could be iPad, it could be a PlayStation, could be anything. So most common play type is touch screens, and almost around 40% of kids are using it very often, or they are kind of addicted to it. And the next one that comes behind it are the game consoles, which is nothing but a PlayStation, again a screen, again a gadget here. And only after that comes your construction or building blocks or puzzles or board games or anything. So it's going to be quite worrisome. The kids are always exposed to a gadget. It's not just the kids' fault, because the parent or the caretaker, any primary caretaker at home is always with a gadget at home. Each household has almost 6 to 7 different gadgets at home. Aren't we? We have 2 televisions, we have 2 different phones, 2 to 4 phones, 2 personal phones, 2 office phones, a computer, a tablet, an iPad, a PlayStation. So almost 6 to 8 gadgets at home is available, very easily available for a kid. So it's not a kid's fault that they are again using the gadgets very often. So what do we do when we're being exposed to gadgets so often? What happens to a kid who's been exposed to gadgets so very often? That is what we're going to be talking about. So with omnipresent kids everywhere, the gadgets, are there any developmental issues for the kid? Or is it going to be really detrimental, or it's going to be a very scary picture for us? Are we, as a parent or as a caregiver, or as an educator or as a teacher, are we unaware of the effects of the gadgets that's happening to the kid? Or just ignoring, or just oblivious to the fact? We're just ignoring the fact, and we are giving the gadgets to our kids just because we want to maintain the sanity, or we just want to get the chores done at home, or it's just that we want to pacify the kid. So that is what is a more important factor that we're going to be looking at. So we always talk about the effects. Are there any positive effects for the gadgets? Are there any positive impact of the gadgets? Any responses? Any idea? Are there any positive impact of the gadgets? Any responses?
Yeah, so they learn kind of fast.
Fast what? What do they learn?
Like spoken or kind of interpreting things that we learned very late in our lives, but we see that they learn very easily, very fast, because they are repeating those things.
Okay. It can be your meaning like you're exposed to various languages, they're picking up accents from the cartoons or the
Yeah.
screen? Or is it what
yes.
you mentioned?
Yes,
What
kind
I
of,
feel
yeah.
is that, okay, sorry, just continue. What I feel is that my daughter learned most of the numbers, alphabets, colors through watching those rhymes and mobile. So I feel those are things which is useful. But there's one thing that, if we don't give her the mobiles and all, then she start a little bit
She's
becoming
cranky.
cranky. Yeah, and then she doesn't eat without mobile. So this
Correct.
is the negative impact
Exactly.
of the
Yeah.
mobile.
Okay. Right. Yeah. So the positive impact, it improves your motor skills. It improves, as I said before, it improves your gross motor skills. Gross motor skills is like swiping the screen, moving to a next screen, pressing your the next video. So those things kinds of improves in a kid. It understands the cause and effect, or there's an action and reaction effect. That is, if you press this button, it moves to the next screen. It press this video, this screen opens. They kind of understand something happens because of pressing the certain things. So they understand the cause and effect, or an action and reaction effect. And it also said it increases the competitive nature of a child through games or puzzles. The kids who are playing games or puzzles, they just want to beat their own score or beat their friend's score, kinds of increases the competitive nature in the child. But these are the positive impact gadgets. But looking at the negative impact, are we really, there's a balance between the two is what I'm going to show. These are the ill effects of the gadgets. Yes, I'll be talking in detail about these things. I just want you to see the ill effects first. So yes, a never-ending list of the ill effects of the gadgets. There's a total, the ill effects outweighs your positive effects. So that is why we have to take a decision here. What happens when there's an overexposure to gadgets? What happens to kids' brain? What happens to its language? What happens to its sleep, its food intake is what we're going to talk in detail. So the first and most important point is your hampered cognitive development. What is cognition here? The cognition is a child learns through various things. It learns through senses, it learns to experience, it learns through looking at the object, learns by copying certain things. Here what happens when a child has been exposed to a gadget, the lack of senses, doesn't touch anything and learn. It is not exposed to anything. It doesn't feel anything and learn. It doesn't look at you and learn. This cognition could be, there are two types of conscious cognition or an unconscious cognition, cognitive learning. So this conscious cognition is something like unscrewing or screwing a bottle or opening and closing of a tap. And those things are like looking at you and learning it, consciously learning how you're doing it and you just want to do it again. Unconscious learning, the most common example is language. You don't teach words to a kid. It picks up words, it understands the expressions from the words. It knows when you're raising your voice, when you are hugging, when you are cuddly to your child, when you are pacifying your child. So it picks up words from it. It picks up yes or no even before it can even speak a word. Around 8 to 10 minutes, it knows what a yes is, what a no is. So this cognition is hampered in a major level. And because of this hampering of the cognition, your speech or language there's a delay in the speech or language. And a child cannot focus for a long time. As I said before, this ADHD has been increased rapidly. There's an attention deficit. The child is not able to focus on something for a very long time because of this exposure, overexposure of a gadget. And because of that, because the child is not able to focus for a long time, he's not able to read or learn something. And because of this, there's a poor performance in school. All the things comes one by one. There's a very vicious circle. And so, as somebody said here, there's an addiction here. Yes, with the overexposure, the child is getting addicted to it. Why is there an addiction? Why is the child gets addicted to a cartoon? Is there any, have you ever noticed that why is that they get addicted to a cartoon? Have you ever noticed the pictures of a cartoon here? The rhymes or anything that they see? How are they, these cartoons always picturized? It is usually picturized.
Fast moving?
Yeah. Please.
Fast moving, ma'am. Pictures.
Yeah, fast moving. Very true. Yes. And
attractive, bright, colorful.
Yes, bright colors. Great. Yes. And you can see the pictures of the faces. They are very big than the body. The face is always bigger than the body. The bright eyes, big eyes, and the colors are very bright. And they're fast moving, as you said. So that is why it's very addictive. The child learns only through looking at the face of the cartoon. It looks at the face, it is very big, it is bright. That is what it's been constantly looking at. The face of the cartoon is very attractive here. That is how the child's brain is attuned itself. A child looks at your face or primary caregiver's face and it learns a lot of things. It looks at the face and picks up a lot of things even without teaching itself. So that is why it's getting addicted to it. This fast motion, this colors, and the bright, big pictures are what is getting addicted to it. And this is very vicious cycle. As somebody said here, it's a very vicious cycle. It gets addicted, it gets obsessed with the screen, it wants it again and again. And since it gets obsessed, you try to remove the gadget from the scene. You don't want to get the child using it again and again. So you try to remove it. The child gets agitated. There's a temper tantrum. The child cries. So to pacify the child, you bring back the gadget again into the scene. And it's again a vicious cycle. It gets addicted, it gets obsessed, it gets agitated. The same thing happens again and again. And you don't know what to do with. You don't know how to stop this. So that's a very vicious cycle. That is why it's very, you have to be very careful. It's a fine line that you have to walk here. So let me move on to this. So the child actually thrives on this one-on-one interaction. It's very important. We tell this in technical terms, we tell this as a talk time. The talk time is very important for a child below 2 years. The more it is getting exposed to people talking around, hearing voices, that is where its brain picks up a lot of words. It grows rapidly. The brain size triples before the first word is spoken. So there's a huge development here. The maximum learning happens before the 5 years of age. So whatever you're going to teach, it picks up maximum before the 5 years of age. And there's another vicious cycle here. Overexposure leads to cognition hampering. Cognition hampering leads to attention deficit. Attention deficit leads to a language delay. Language delay leads to your learning disability. So it's all interrelated. So that is what you have to be looking at the bigger picture here. And somebody said as an educational TV, somebody said here, no, my child has learned a lot of things. They have picked up rhymes, numbers and all. So basically educational TV is this only. People People are proud, there are parents who are proud that my child knows numbers, letters, alphabets, phonics even before 2 years or 2.5 years. Even before a child can speak, it can identify colors. So are there any educational TV really here? Actually, no. The child doesn't really comprehend the colors, or it doesn't even understand what a color is. Yes, it can differentiate a disc blue to a red or a green to a yellow, or it can identify an A to an C, but doesn't know what an A is, what an C is. That is not real education asset. It just looks at a screen, it sees constantly again and again and again, and it picks up. So is there a real education happening here? I don't think so. There's real, as such, has no educational TV here. A child less than 2 years really doesn't comprehend much of all those things. And what happens here is it hinders just your talk time. If you really want to teach your child, you could sing along with them. You can talk with them. You can talk about colors. The child learns colors only by you talking with them. You don't have to teach colors here. You can tell them, child, to go bring a blue bottle from there. Bring your blue bottle, or bring the red box from there. Close the blue box over the red. That's how the child correlates between the color and the thing. That is how it picks up letters. You can say there are 5 tomatoes here. Put them in the box. There are 6 oranges here. Let's peel one by one. That is how it picks up things from various, that's how it understands the concept of numbers or colors. And that is how education actually happens for a child. And it's said that 10 minutes of a physical activity changes your there's a huge neurological changes happening in your brain. Here, the child has been looking at a screen for over 1 hour or 2 hours, and there's absolute no physical activity. The more the child jumps around, walks around, and more child is getting exposed to various things, the child learns a lot of things. It absorbs and picks up a lot of things. Here, there's absolutely no physical activity, leading to which there's an obesity in the later life. So we're talking about language delay. I just want you to share a screen. I'm not going in detail about this. Here's a chart that shows about the signs of a language delay. The language delay could be 2 types. Here one could be receptive language delay or an expressive language delay. Receptive is the child expresses when receives certain images and certain responses, and based on that it gives an answer. Another thing is child talks as such. There are 2 language delay here. There's simple instructions when a child cannot follow. Go bring your pillow, go bring your blanket. When a child is not able to understand by age of 1.5 years, you have to look out for it. If the child cannot use words by the end of 2 years, small words by the end of 2 years, you again have to be cautious there. So we're talking about radiation exposure. What kind of radiation are the kids being exposed here? The most common thing that it's been exposed is the blue light. Every gadget emits something called blue light. I think most of you know about this. So what is a blue light? What happens when the kid has been exposed to blue light for a very long time? Blue light is said to be suppressing your melatonin pigment. So what is melatonin here? Melatonin is produced in your brain to help you to sleep better. It is one of the things that has been secreted in your brain to help you to know that your body is tired. It has to sleep now. So it gets suppressed usually during the daytime, and it is increased, the production is increased during the night time. So this blue light, when using during the night time, it suppresses your melatonin pigment production as such. So what happens? Your sleep pattern is changed. There's a sleep impairment. The child's natural biological clock, or we call it the circadian rhythm. The circadian rhythm is affected here. So how does it happen? There's a receptor in your eye that's called as a melanopsin. This melanopsin receives information from what they look around. When it's dark, it receives information and sends information to your brain where the melatonin is produced. But what happens when you're looking at a gadget at a night time? Because of this blue light, it receives information as if it is still not a night time or still not time to produce a melatonin. So this melanopsin is very sensitive to blue light. It exactly peaks around your blue light or the blue light wavelength. So when there's a blue light emitting, this melanopsin pigment doesn't send information to your brain to produce a melatonin. Thereby, your circadian rhythm is affected. That's why I said the sensitive around your 480 nanometers is nothing but your blue light wavelength. So thereby, your circadian rhythm or your natural biological clock is hampered. and thereby doesn't sleep impairment. The child doesn't sleep properly, and due to which the growth of the child is getting affected. And I want to talk about this obesity a little more. I'll be talking a little more later in thing. There's no physical activity due to which there's no obesity. There's another thing that's related to obesity here. We call it as a mindful eating. Somebody said here that the child wants to have a gadget whenever the child is eating. So the caretaker wants the child to have a tummy full. So what they do is they introduce a screen here. The child looks at the screen. The child has no idea what the child is eating. Doesn't know what vegetables going in, what fruit is going in, what kind of food it's taking, or the texture of the food. There's absolutely no senses used here. Just the vision is on the screen. It eats whatever has been given. The tummy is full. So the parent is happy here. The parent is happy the child is full. But what happens here? We call this as a mindful eating. The child should know what it is eating. That is why we encourage a child to sit with the family to have a dinner or a lunch. So the child feels what it's been eating, it explores with the food, so it knows what is what, and it knows when to stop and how much to eat. So it is very important, because later in life, without knowing how much to eat or how much to stop, there's a factor that leads to obesity. Here another thing that you have to notice, since the child eats whenever there's a screen, the child wants something to eat constantly. So you introduce junk food here, leading to which there's an obesity here. So there's a chart that shows that it's been peaked around the blue light. The melanopsin response is peaked exactly around the blue light. What does the AAP guidelines say? AAP is nothing but American Academy of Pediatrics. It gives you very clear guidelines, like different ages of the kids, when to use and how much to use. Kids below 2 years, absolute no television, no gadgets. 3 to 5 years, maximum of 1 hour a day is allowed. That too, no violent television. 6 to 12 years, 2 hours, up to 2 hours is acceptable. And 13 to 18 years, maximum of 2 hours. That too at a stretch of only 30 minutes in a day. So I just want to go a little more in detail about those guidelines. Kids less than 18 months, absolutely no television, no gadgets, no screen time at all. Kids between 1.5 to 2 years, 18 to 24 months, you could introduce video chatting, because the kid starts to speak little words. It understands expressions or emotions. So you could introduce the screen time of video chatting, where a kid can see grandparents, relatives, friends, and there's some kind of communication happening. It's not constantly looking at the screen and engrossed. There's some kind of communication happening here. So you could introduce 10 minutes of video chatting. 2 to 5 years, 20 to 30 minutes of screen time is allowed, but only with adult supervision here. 6 to 12 years, up to 1 hour, but with, again, maximum of only 20 to 30 minutes. And about 12 years, 1.5 hours to 2 hours, with maximum of 30 to 45 minutes at the stretch. All these things only with an adult supervision, no violent TV, no monsters, no zombies, no scary pictures here. So I just want you to close your eyes. You could all switch on your video. I just want you to close your eyes for 20 minutes. Why we are doing this, I'll explain it a little later. Can you all switch on your video for 20 seconds? I'll be playing this. I want you to all close your eyes for exactly 20 minutes. 20 seconds, I'm sorry. Please, can you close your eyes? Okay. So I'll be explaining why we did this later. I'll just move on with the presentation. This will come a little later, why I did this. And there's an AAP recommendations, the American Academy of Pediatrics recommendation, which said there should be no electronic devices in the kid's bedroom. Absolutely no electronic devices in the kid's bedroom. Why? Because it hampers your sleep. Never use your gadgets to pacify the kid. It's the most common thing that a parent or a caregiver does. Whenever they want to get their chores done, or when they want to pacify the kid, or when they want to have their meal in a restaurant or in a movie theater, they hand over a gadget to a kid. So never do that, because that is how it starts. The addiction starts. That is how an exposure to a gadget starts. Always co-view with your child. Sit and watch what the child is watching. Talk with the child so the child has some amount of social interaction here. And there should be absolutely no screen during mealtime and during bedtime, because it leads to a lot of tantrums, leads to a lot of addiction here. Always establish reasonable but firm rules. Let them know that 20 minutes of, if it's going to be a kid of 6 years or above, let them know it's going to be only 30 minutes of television and stop right there. Don't give in just because the child is having a tantrum. There should be no violent televisions, no fighting, no shooting, no zombies, as I said before. So if you find a child been using more than 2 hours in a day, watching a screen more than 2 hours in a day, and there's a lot of temper tantrums associated with it, and a child cannot spend a day without a gadget, then you have to watch out for the child. The child is getting addicted to a screen and it needs a digital detox. So what do you do? Even before you stop some medical professional, what do you exactly do here? You go for a 72 hours detox. So what do you mean by 72 hours detox? Absolute no screen for 3 days. Absolutely no screen, which means the parent or the caregiver has to not touch a screen or not use a screen before the child for next 3 days. So the parent also has to have that amount of self-control here. So what happens when the child gets addicted? You go for next 3 days without a gadget. Involve the child in a lot of social, talk to the child, involve in a lot of social interaction. Take the child out, exhaust the child physically, give a child a lot of physical activity. Let the child play for a lot, let the child, leave the child for a free play. Free play is nothing but let the child explore and play on its own. Don't just go behind, instruct the child to play this or that. Let the child use its creativity and let it play for a long time. A lot of people complain that they give a gadget because the child is very bored. The boredom is very common reason that the gadgets are introduced here. It is okay to be bored. It is okay to be bored because that is when the child gets creative. That is when the child learns to play on its own and learns to play even with what is being available at the present. Never introduce a gadget just because the child is bored, because that's very important here. And if you're having difficulty even after implementing all these things, please sort of professional. Look out for health counselors or psychotherapists who will help you out how to get your child de-addicted. Let's move on to the next segment, the computer vision syndrome. What happens in your eye? What effects that's caused in your eye? We call this as a computer vision syndrome. What is computer vision syndrome? When you're using a computer or a screen for a longer time, it causes a lot of things. It causes a lot of things in your eye. So what are the signs that you have to look out, or what are the symptoms that you can see when a child or an adult, even adult, this is most commonly used, we used to see it most commonly in adult. So what happens to an adult or a child who's been exposed to computer for a longer time? So these are the signs and symptoms that we can see in computer vision syndrome. It is heaviness around the eyes, redness, burning sensation, headaches usually around between the eyebrows or frontal or temporal. Temporal is between the sides or frontal is here, and it radiates back. A child has difficulty focusing, there's a blurring of images, doubling of images, the letters float, there's difficulty in reading, copying from the blackboard or from the screen. There's dryness, irritation, inflammation and pain. And because of the heaviness around the eye, a child or adult here finds it has increased sleepiness while reading. So what do you understand from these signs and symptoms? What do you note from here? There's something very important that you have to observe from this. Any responses? What do you understand from this? There are a lot of signs and symptoms that I mentioned here. Any responses? What do you infer from this? Whenever there is any responses, you see this difficulty focusing, blurring of images, double images, floating of letters, difficulty of reading.
Damage of eye.
What is that you refer?
Damage, permanent damage of the eye.
Permanent damage in the eye, okay. Whenever the child who's been performing decently well or above average is performing very poor or is not concentrating in class, it's always related to an eye. That could be an undiagnosed effect in the eye. There's an undiagnosed refractive error or can be some other thing that you have to look out here. Because The child could be experiencing double images, blurring of letters. There could be difficulty in reading, writing, but a child doesn't know how to express properly. So there's no concentration in the class, leading to poor performance in the class. So always look out when the child is not performing, when the child suddenly doesn't perform well in the school. So what are the causes for the computer vision syndrome? The most common causes, of course, the prolonged use of computers. Along with the prolonged use of computers could be uncorrected refractive errors, inappropriate prescription or wrong prescriptions for a close work, your eye muscle imbalance, insufficient blinking leading to your dry eyes, poor lighting or incorrect lighting again, incorrect postures, and air conditioning. Air conditioning leads to a dry eye. So you don't blink, as such you don't blink much when you're using a gadget. And with the air conditioning, your blink rate reduces drastically, leading to a dry eye. So treatment, how do you go about the treatment for this? The treatment that we suggest commonly for computer vision syndrome is vision therapy, and it's usually done by someone called an orthoptist or optometrist. So what kind of vision therapy do we suggest for people with computer vision syndrome? Here, what you have to look is your eye muscles, or the two factors that gets affected in your eye are your accommodation or your convergence and your convergence. That is, when you're looking at a closer object, you accommodate or you make it clear. You look at closely, make it clear. So that is called accommodation. And while accommodating, your eyes converge. When you're looking at a closer object, your eyes converge. So these are the two things that it takes a hit when you're using a screen. So what kind of treatment or what kind of therapy do we give here? We give the accommodative flippers. The accommodative flippers has one side of the flipper has a plus lenses, the other side has a minus lenses. So we give a flipper where the child has to flip from the plus lenses to minus lenses. We give a near object or reading object here. We ask the child to focus on the letters and through your plus lenses first. And when the child is able to focus clearly, we ask them to move it to a minus lenses. So thereby giving exercises to your eye to help them to clear out your accommodation. So that is one type of exercise that we suggest here. The other thing that we can do is a pencil push-up. This helps in your convergence, or when your eyes converge, there is a problem here. So when this exercise helps you in your convergence. This you could do very easily at home. You could do this exercise and you can even note, you can even find out if you're having a convergence insufficiency or not. Anybody can do this. So what you have to do is take a pencil, or even can use a finger here. But take a pencil, look at the end of your pencil, your lead of the pencil. Keep it at 1 arm's distance. Slowly bring it towards your eyes, focusing on your tip. So at one point, if you're bringing it very slowly, at one point, you would see that the tip of the pencil blurs out and becomes a double image. Stop right there. Or ask a child when it becomes double, ask them to stop right there. Measure the distance between your eye and the tip of your pencil. The average distance should be between 8 to 10 centimeters. Anything above 10 centimeters, the child or adult is having a convergence insufficiency. And it could be due to various reasons apart from gadgets, but gadget is the most common reason that anybody who is suffering who has a convergence insufficiency. And apart from all these things, a right prescription is very, very, very important. So always go to for an eye checkup, have a correct prescription, and if the child is having all these symptoms and signs of the computer vision syndrome, go for a vision therapy. And they could also prescribe lubrication here because of the dry eyes. The normal blink rate that normal adults should have is around 18 to 20 times in a minute. This blink rate is drastically reduced when you're using a screen because you concentrate and you're constantly looking at the screen. You don't blink much. So when the blink rate is reduced, it leads to dry eyes and irritation and redness. So we as optometrists, we used to suggest them lubrication or external lubrication, which helps them to maintain the tears in the eyes. And as I said before, dyslexia and vision therapy. Dyslexia is nothing but reading difficulty. The child who has reading difficulty or learning difficulty, these dyslexic children are benefiting from vision therapy because usually they're not able to concentrate on something. So they are usually advised for a vision therapy along with other treatments of them. They usually are advised for a vision therapy, and we have found that there's a huge change for the child, where the child improves in the language, in reading, in focusing, in writing and all. So what are the AAO recommendations are here? We have seen the AAP recommendations, which is the American Academy of Pediatric recommendation. This is the American Academy of Ophthalmology recommendations. So the American Ophthalmology of AAO recommendations, it states that a very good workstation is very important. Here with online schooling, every child is being exposed to a gadget and has to sit before the screen at least from 45 minutes to 3 hours, right? The school goes from anywhere between 45 minutes to 3 hours. So very good workstation is very important. It has to be ergonomic. That is very important. So what is the ergonomic workstation that we suggest here? You could see the picture here. It has a very clear explanation. Your monitor should be below your eye level. It should not be like this. The child should not be viewing the screen like this. It has to be below your, it has to be 18 to 20 inches, 22 inches below your eye level. Your arm should be rested well. You have to have a good backrest. That means you have to have a very good chair here. And your legs should be free. There should be no restrictions in your leg. Your feet should touch on the floor. So if the child is not able to touch the feet on the floor, you could use a small stool that could give a footrest kind. So apart from this, apart from the very good ergonomic workstation, we suggest this 20-20-20 rule. So what is this 20-20-20 rule is? For every 20 minutes of screen time, you have to take a 20-second break and look out for 20 feet distance. So that is what we did earlier. We took a 20-second break, if you remember. That was exactly after 20 minutes of session. So after 20 minutes of a screen time, you need to give a break for your eyes because you don't blink much. You are straining and focusing here. So take a 20-second break, walk, have some water, come back, or go and look at a window, or just have a chat with your friend nearby and come and sit. A 20-second break is not much. Or if you cannot afford a 20-second break, if you're a teacher and you cannot let your children go and have a 20-second break, you can always use the technique that I did. Ask the child to close their eyes for 20 seconds and resume the work again. So please take this 20-second break. Or the rule says after 20 minutes, take a 20-second break and look out 20 feet distance, because you have to shift your focus to various distances. That is what your eyes are made up of actually. It needs different focusing distance constantly. And always go for regular eye examinations. Use of tinted lenses, tinted glasses. Regular stretching is required. Constantly looking like this, crouching over, it causes a lot of neck and shoulder problems. Use the anti-glare screen, anti-glare lenses. And apart from all these things, please limit your screen time. That is what I've been constantly telling from the start. So there's another common question that parents or educators ask, how close is too close? How close can a child go for the TV viewing? So ideal TV viewing distance is anywhere between 8 to 10 feet from the screen. Say if your television is 30 inches, keep it as 30 inches. It should be 5 times away from the screen. So it's around 150 inches. You have to be sitting away from the screen. 150 inches is nothing but around 12 to 13 feet. So ideal distance should be anywhere about 10 feet. 8 to 10 feet is recommended. At least 8 to 10 feet is recommended. And the position of TV is also very important. The child should not be viewing like this or like this, or should not be sitting in a very awkward posture, causing a lot of postural problems. And constant blink rate is very important. A good lighting is also very important. There should not be any glare on the screen that a child is viewing. And the size of the screen is also important here. The larger the screen, better it is for the child's eye, because it causes lesser strain for the eye. So using a phone as a child in the below picture, like it goes very close to the phone and constantly viewing, is not very recommended. Or a child lying down and watching a television like this is also not very recommended here. So smaller the screen, more problems are prone here. So that comes to an end of the session here. So any questions here, you can always put in the chat box and we can talk in detail here. Any questions, any doubts, any discussions that you want to be done, we can always discuss here. Any questions? Any questions, any doubts, any questions you want to clarify here? Somebody said that my child doesn't eat unless he watches cartoons. What can we do here? So that is, yes, any question here? Somebody unmuted. If I answer the question, I can. Okay, fine. So here somebody, Roshni has asked, my child doesn't eat unless he watches cartoons. What can we do about it? As a parent, you have to encourage your child first sit along with the family for eating. Bring him to a dining table, explore, give him the chance to explore the food, bring him the food to before him, ask him to sit with your family during it. You also do not, you switch on the television when you're sitting with the family. So sit and talk with the child. For next 2 or 3 days, the child would not be eating as such. It is okay if the child is not having lunch with you. The child is not eating much as such. It is okay, but that is how the mealtime starts. It is okay. Give a chance for a child to first sit and explore the food, and then talk to a child, have a communication here, and slowly cut down the screen time during television. Don't feed the kid because when you're feeding, the kid wants some other distraction here. So the kid goes to a gadget or it is getting distracted and doesn't know what it's exactly eating here. So always give the food, offer the food before the child, and encourage the child to touch the food. If you want to really feed the child, it's okay, you can feed, but also give him an opportunity to explore the food. So that is how it starts, the addition. And you have to de-addict only by very slowly. You have to go very step by step, and you have to go very slowly here. So anything else? Any other questions? Yeah, Aishwarya.
Ma'am, can you just stop screen sharing, please? So,
Yes,
we can just go through the questions.
Yes, I've stopped. Any questions?
Yes, we'll just see. You have already answered the one about cartoons. We had some questions, I think, in the previous session. I think when the session got closed, those questions have gone, but there were some questions earlier.
Ma'am, it was a very wonderful, knowledgeable session. Really, we understood we all are like exactly doing the online learning right now, online teaching. So 2020 rule also we could impart in our sessions easily, and we can suggest the ways to how much the distance should be there. It was a very excellent session. Thank you so much for bringing that. And I have a doubt actually. My niece, she's in USA. So they have a kid, and also she's only 6 months old. So it's only one way, we can only do the video chatting or video call. So maybe I think I have to educate her, but if you can just tell me what are the side effects of video chatting, maybe this age group.
Recommendation is anything for age of 6 months. We don't recommend a video chat as such, but it is okay to video chat once in a while. You're not going to video chat for 1 hour, 2 hours showing the kid's face. You could use a back screen here. You could always, the parent can use a back screen here. The child doesn't have to see the screen. For a 6-month-old, it doesn't understand anything, right? So the parent can use a back screen here and show the video of the child here. And the other person there can always see the child here. And there's going to be no communication between the parent, the person who is talking on the phone and the child here. The other person just wants to see the child here. So it is okay to use a back screen here, the back camera here, and encourage the other person to see here. And this video chat is not going to be for 1 hour, 2 hour long. They're not going to see the child for 1 hour or 2 hours. It is okay to use 5 or 10 minutes, can see the video of the child. That is absolutely okay here. But you don't have to show the screen for the child to see. The child doesn't understand much. For a 6-month-old, is going to not understand much. So back screen or front screen is not going to matter for a child here. So always you can use a back camera here.
Okay, thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, any more questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, AK. Somebody said I will reduce the screen time for my kid. Yes, thank you. That is what we've been. That is what we wanted from the outcome of the session. That is what we wanted. Thank you for that. Yes.
Yes, we have even Ms. Roshni is saying the session is very insightful. Krishna Priya ma'am is also thanking you for the session. Sini ma'am says it's an excellent session. So thank you so much, ma'am. You have been a wonderful speaker. Nimit ma'am would like to share. Yes, sir.
Yes,
Mr. Vivek, if you have any.
So the question about that detoxification you said, right? 72 hours of detox.
Yes.
No screen time, right? So, but then what after that? After 72 hours, how do we go? 72 hours. Yeah, obviously, let's say we controlled and we did not, we took a leave from our work and taken 3 days of no screen time at all. But after that, what is the routine?
Yeah. Okay. So very good. Yeah, very good question. Somebody asked about this. Yes. So you're taking a 72-hour detox here. So after 72 hours, what happens for the kid here is, usually kids don't remember much after a 3-day break. So even if the kid wants after a 3-day break, use distractions here. Try to minimize the screen time. You can always use a screen time for 15 to 20 minutes, but not more than that. And it should not be more than 1 hour in a day. That is what we are aiming at. A screen time more than 1 hour a day is going to lead a lot of effects on the child. So try to limit the screen time. Slowly do a lot of distractions here. The child has to come out of the addiction. That is what we are aiming at here. So after 3 days, if it is really necessary that you have to introduce a screen time here, that you have to get something done, or if you really want a screen time here, the child really wants a screen time, you could always establish some firm rules. Let the child know that there's not going to be any screen time after more than 15 minutes, and there's not going to be screen time of 2 to 3 times in a day. This is the only one time that you have to have a screen, and reduce the screen time gradually. Don't go about shouting or yelling at the child or using other ways. You can always talk to the child, pacify the child, and bring out from the detox, from the addiction.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, anything else?
Yes, ma'am. Rajeshwari ma'am has said that the session has been excellent. Mrs. Dechendorma also says it's a very informative session.
Yeah.
So thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am. Nimit ma'am would like to give a vote of thanks.
Yeah, thank you. So any questions, you can always contact the coordinator here.
There is a question, ma'am, from Ms. Roshni. Any other ways for early detection of addiction to screen and eye problems other than the pencil test?
The pencil test is an objective test. That is when there's a convergence and the child is complaining of headache or eye strain, that is when we go for a pencil push-up test. A detection of addiction is different. Detection of eye problem is different here. Detection of addiction, you could always see there could be a temper tantrum associated with it. The child gets cranky. The child is always obsessed with the screen. The child is not talking with anybody. The child is totally isolated from the world. There's absolutely no social communication. So those are the early detections for an addiction. For eye-related problems, you could see those symptoms the child exhibits. Could be a redness, could be constant watering. The child is not able to focus on the near vision. The child is complaining of a headache or irritation or eye strain. So those are the things that you have to look out if there's an eye-related problem also associated with the screen. So these are two different aspects. For addiction, you have to look out for certain things. For eye-related, you have to look out for certain other things.